God will never call you to Egypt without providing 3 wise men. He will always take care of you. He is a good, good Father. All right, got a little word from the Word for you today. It's going to be out of Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 down through verse 34. And try to make these quick. The whole idea, just to share my heart with you, the whole idea of this channel, it's not always going to be super polished. I'm just going to be me. And I'm addressing topics that I consistently see people, they struggle with, or stuff that irritates me. There's a variety of things. This one doesn't irritate me, but man, it just breaks my heart. It's covering provision. Like in this passage here in Matthew, Jesus is talking to this big 5,000 crowd, okay? And you know, I've read many scholars. They all agree that, you know, there was way more than 5,000 that were present. Women probably were not counted in their culture. Children probably were not counted, and it was probably an approximation at best. So, however you figure it up, I mean, it was a lot of people that were at this. At this sermon that he was doing, the Sermon on the Mount. It's a massive sermon. And he's addressing like where they're all living. And this is first century Judaism. And this is one of the reasons I love The Chosen. It's you get a little bit of a glimpse, you know, and there's some leeway they have biblically, and you got to be careful and take it back to the scriptures, and you should do all that. But there is this, you know, there's this picture of, and it's pretty good, of what it was like in the first century, living under just extreme oppression and taxation, and not just taxation from Rome, but taxation from, you know, their own people, from the Jews as well. And so, man, it was hard to make ends meet. And so Jesus is speaking to this crowd, and he's talking about provision. And in this particular verse, Matthew 6, again, verses 25 down through verse 34, he's not talking about excess stuff. He's talking about the normal things of life. You know, the clothing that we're going to wear, the food that we're going to put into our mouth, the necessities of every day that you and I have. And he's saying, listen, God completely cares about those things. He provides those things for us. Obviously, with what I do and in my life, I'm around Christians all the time in a different city, you know, nearly every week. And I'm in church. So I hang around Christians. And, you know, I meet very few Christians who, you know, don't believe the scriptures. They say they do, but I almost want to question them sometimes, like, do they really? Like this whole passage, and it's interesting when he's talking about provision here in our verses. In my NIV, above it, it's don't worry, don't stress. I mean, he says he's going to provide, so he's going to provide. I hear Christians all the time say stuff like, my Father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Then why are you stressing? Why are you stressing out? God said he would provide, and he will provide. We've had this. Listen, I've lived my entire life. If you don't know me, I lived my entire life on faith. God called me in 1995 to the ministry. I was dead broke. I had no idea what ministry would look like. I wasn't going to be a pastor. I was going to travel around and preach. And I was going to, you know, just go to churches, and whatever they would give me, they would give me. My wife and I began our ministry living out of a Ford Escort. We didn't have a house, and we just, you know, went on the road, had our kids on the road. We've lived by faith our entire life. And there's this principle that I've lived by. And I got it when you look at God calling Joseph in the middle of the night to grab his wife and his newborn son and go to the land of Egypt. They don't know anybody in Egypt. How are they going to make it? And yet God provided 3 wise men with gold, frankincense, and myrrh to finance that trip. and not just finance the trip there and not just finance the trip back, but they were there for probably 5 years and maybe a little bit longer. So God never sends you to Egypt. Dude, just believe this. This is so significant. And I just, when I record these, I just really believe there's going to be people that are going to run across this or just going to need to hear this. God will never call you to Egypt without providing 3 wise men. He will always take care of you. He is a good, good father. Now, you and I obviously have to steward well what he gives us and steward well the finances he puts in our hand. But even then, he's just so forgiving. And it seems like when we talk about provision, let me say it this way. When we're talking about provision and God provides, it seems to be this wow, abnormal thing rather than, this is just consistently how God shows up in my life. He always takes care of us, always. And my wife and I are very frugal, and we operate like I assume every responsible person should. We live off of a budget. We have a certain amount of money we live off every week. No matter what's in the tank, we only take out a certain much every week to live off of, and we're good stewards. But there's been times where, if he doesn't come through, we don't eat. Well, I've always eaten. He's always provided. So I want to encourage you today. Like, the New Testament is full of, and if you've spent any time around church and if you know the scriptures and if you just dig into the New Testament, he always provides. He said he would provide. You're just called to have faith. He's going to provide the necessities of life. He's going to look out after you. So I hope that encourages you today.